Takes me a minute. I got to use my old man walker to get over there.
As we're streaming live, that's awesome. I love it.
I know.
Like we're streaming live, so I gotta go get a beer.
That's all right. I had to go on mute for a minute. I had a Dash 8 decide to fly overhead, so it was going to be really loud. Here, so we can break.
All right. It looks like we are live. All right, sweet. Let me make sure that.
Hey.
It takes me a minute. I got to use my old man walker to get over there. That's right.
As we're streaming live, that's all. Mute all these streams that we got going on. I'm going to share it to my Facebook real quick, and once I share it to my Facebook, we are going to start the show on ClearProp TV. I love that name. You know, Kevin came up with ClearProp TV.
How did he come up with that name?
I don't know. It's one of his many names that he came up with.
Yeah, I like it.
I just started shooting off every idea I could honestly think of and just let you guys decide. And I think collectively, that's just where we landed.
Where we landed.
I see what you did there.
All right, guys. Welcome, everyone. My name is Sean Symons, PPG. Welcome to ClearProp TV, where you get to see the live stream. We also have the audio streaming live to paratalk.org. So if you don't want to see our ugly mugs, just go over there and listen to us live. Well, who do we have here today? Today, our guest is Brady Smith, and we can hear Shane smoking in the background. That's never touched Skinny Chef Shane. We have Linda Anderson, Kevin Can Fly, JP Tulo, and who else do we have? Who else do we have? Tommy's in the chat. Brian Walker, he's in the chat. Linda Anderson, our lovely Linda Anderson. Who else do we have in here? Everybody else? I said everybody's name. We got a big amount of people. Big people. We got big people here today. We got a large group today, and I still hear something in the background.
A large panel you got there, John.
Panel. I still hear something in the background. Who's making noise?
Not me.
Shane, Shane's muted, so we can't hear him breathe anymore. So
It's like a bird or something.
An echo.
Well, I'm using a new device. Let me mute it just to make sure it's not me.
All right. And then everything goes quiet. Okay.
Nope.
I still hear it. Maybe it's Tommy. Let me mute Tommy. Maybe it was Tommy. Okay. Well, hello everyone. Welcome to the show. We are now streaming live. We appreciate you coming and checking us out here at ClearProp TV. We have a very interesting guest, Brady Smith. He let's go ahead and talk about your prop strike first. Even though he has a huge repertoire of really interesting things, including ripping his wing that he has fixed. He also went to the flying circus, hot air balloons, he even has a birthday fly-in coming up. But the biggest thing that we want to talk about right now is this prop strike. Now, JP, he can put up the after effects with the stitches. So if you're watching this live right now, you might want to cover your eyes if stitches bother you. But we had a little prop strike. What happened, Brady?
So this was kind of when I was a really new pilot. This was like October 2017. I went flying with a buddy in Chino Valley. And this is the aftermath here that you can see. It looks like somebody cooked bacon on the side of my middle finger. But that's an emergency room, and let me tell you that the pain was pretty insurmountable, man, on that one. But I was launching my wing. I was just pulled up the wing, and it went right really hard, and so I pulled down left really hard. And at the time, I had a Nirvana instinct, and the netting on that is pretty much for show, but it's not to protect you at all. And the cable from my throttle was in my left hand, and I think what happened was it hit the prop and pulled it enough to where it pulled my hand back, and it thumped my ring finger, my pinky, and my middle finger, and just kind of sliced straight across it. And I think my ring finger probably got the brunt of everything and cut deepest to the bone. And then shortly thereafter, my buddy that had been flying with me, he was waiting in the air, waiting for me to launch. He did a flyby because he saw me fall, and I just held up my hand. And of course, there was just blood everywhere on my hand. And I wrapped up my hand in a towel that I had from my truck and started driving to the nearest hospital, which was like 30-40 minutes away. And just on the way out of our launch location, I saw a sheriff's car on the side of the road. So I stopped and I said, "Hey, do you know where the closest hospital is?" And she's like, "You know what? I hate to tell you this, but this is my first week on the job here, and I'm not really familiar with this area." And so we had to get on the phone and start to look. And in the meantime, she called an ambulance. The ambulance showed up. They're like, "Do you want to transport?" And they're like, and I said, "Is that expensive?" And they're like, "Yeah." And I said, "I'll talk to you later." And so at that time, my buddy showed up behind me because he was wrapping everything up for me back at the launch site. And he ended up transporting me. We got to the hospital probably about 10 minutes before we got to the hospital. The pain was just ramping up big time. And then stitched up. I was lucky enough to where I didn't lose my fingers. I'm back to 100%. The only kind of difference now is that my ring finger, my wedding ring that I used to wear, I wasn't wearing it at the time, but it doesn't fit anymore because the scars have basically enlarged my ring finger. So I had to get a new ring. But as I was sitting in the emergency room and getting stitched up, I called my wife and I told her, I said, "I'm going to sell everything," because by that point I had already a couple face plants and busted some props and spent more and more and more and more money. And I just felt like, man, this is a never ending just hole of throwing my money into it. And so I told her, I said, I'm going to sell everything. And she said, "Well, why are you going to do that?" And I'm like, "Well, because obviously it's dangerous and obviously it costs a lot of money." And, she said, "Well, if you got into a car accident, would you sell your car?" And I said, "No." And she's like, "Well, I can see how happy this makes you. So don't go selling your stuff just because you had an accident." And so that's the kind of wife I have, where she's very supportive and she sees the kind of the joy that it brings me. And so I'm lucky enough to have a wife like that, and love her a lot. And I love flying. So I'm glad she told me not to sell my stuff, because I've had a lot of adventures after that, obviously.
That's awesome. She's a keeper.
Definitely a keeper.
The keeper.
She's a keeper.
We just celebrated our 25th year. So
Wow.
Congratulations.
wow. Thanks.
So,
Very awesome.
so Brady, give us a little background. Where did you go to school and how long have you been flying?
So I've been flying since April of 2017. I got online. I had been just looking through things online. I was looking at possibly getting my a license for flying helicopters. I was just looking into aviation. I've been around aviation my whole life. I'm retired from the Air Force. Never flew, although I did get a chance to fly in an F-16 and several other aircraft. But I was just looking online and I came upon Tucker Gott's videos when he was like very first starting. And I thought, well, that looks interesting. And I just started to do some research on it. And I thought, I could do that. And so I was looking in for schools at the time, and I found Ryan Shaw down in Phoenix area and trained with him for on and off for about 2 months, and got about 20 flights in. and bought the Nirvana Instinct. And actually, I was looking back on it. Of course, you don't know what you don't know at the time. And I really wish I would have got a Nirvana Rodeo at the time, which is what I have now. It's kind of like the Jeep version, and the Instinct is like the Ferrari version. And I really wish I would have got a Rodeo at the time, but the netting on the Rodeo is much better and much more protective, whereas the Instinct, the netting is more for looks than anything else. It's not really there to give too much protection. So I finished my training in April 2017. And what's interesting is looking back on some of the flights I took afterwards, I would have never recommended that for, I wouldn't have recommended some of the flights I took for beginners. Like, for example, one of the first flights I did was around Superstition Mountains, which is a 40-mile round or 40-mile loop, basically through some really rough country. So if I would have had an engine out, I would have been like in deep caca, man. I would have been in big trouble. But you know, we flew it and everything was fine. So you know, you don't know what you don't know until you start learning through more and more flights. And that's actually August of 2017. So everything happened in 2017, pretty much the first year when you're learning how to fly. That's when one of my buddies had his reserve that had trained at the same time I did. His reserve opened up unexpectedly, and I watched that from behind. And that was actually on one of the Superstition Springs mountain flights. And he went down. We were probably I was probably about 150. We had just launched. I was about 150 feet in the air. He was about 100, and I was above and behind him. And I saw, you know, this reserve chute just kind of come out the back. And oh, it's not that one there. It's well, that's actually the one where my prop hit my hand, and you can kind of see where that cable goes back. But I saw the reserve come out the back, and we were on intercoms at the time. I had a Cena hook up, and I said, "Are you okay?" And of course, he was in the middle of plummeting to the earth because his wing kind of shot forward and surged down, and then it equaled out on the back with his reserve. And he fell 100 feet, and he had a Scout, broke that frame, bent the bars near the gas tank, and broke his back. And so, and we didn't know at the time, but I found, yeah, that's his rig there at the end, right when I was picking him up. So I got on the intercom. He said, "I'm okay, just go get the truck." So I went and got his truck. And when I showed up, he was standing next to his gear. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, my back just really hurts." And I could tell, I've had my back thrown out before, not related to PPG, but in other circumstances. And I said, "Yeah, you've definitely hurt something." So I stood him up, you know, against the truck. He waddled over there, and I wrapped everything up. Long story short, he finally went to the hospital and found out that he broke his back. And the whole reserve thing was because he had been reaching underneath to pull his seat forward and had clipped, I guess on the Scout it's underneath, and it had clipped, his finger had kind of caught one of the handles, I guess, and deployed it. And so it caught him by surprise because he didn't know until it jerked him back, you know, as he's going forward and his wing surges. So that was quite the crazy experience. And at the time I didn't have any cameras really on me running, but it was crazy to watch that happen. And I was glad that he was okay, but he got back up and flying, and eventually sold his stuff. And I think I don't know if he's moved on yet or not, but he's still kind of in the circles of Arizona PPG flyers.
Interesting. So when you had your prop strike, what is the takeaway from that? Because I'm sure that people are going to be watching this where maybe they haven't even started. What is that?
Kevin.
Whoops.
Hey,
Accident.
so I know somebody's going to be watching this and be, oh my God, you know, I don't want to fly PPG or paramotors because look at all these, you know, people's hands being cut open and getting hurt. So Brady, tell everyone what's the reason why it happened and how can we avoid it in the future?
So I think one of the biggest things that I hadn't done at that time, which I do all the time, and I think a lot of people do all the time now, is with your throttle cable, you want to make sure that that's wrapped over the top of your arm and then it's in your hand instead of kind of just coming out of the side of your arm and running free. That's one thing you can do. The other thing that I did was any space, even after I put it over my arm, I would check to see as I'm moving around my left hand, because it's my left throttle, any kind of space where the cage opens up a little bit, where that cable can go back in any little space, because there's always seems to be, you know, some of the PPGs have nets all the way around and then are kind of cinched down in the middle. But the rodeo has 4 different pieces of frames that you can take apart pretty quick and put them together. And so what I do now is there's space in between there that almost lines up right where the cable goes back. So I put some Velcro and wrap it around a couple of areas right where that space is. So even if my throttle does find its way in that skinny space that leads to the prop, it's going to hit those Velcro, and there's just no way the throttle can go back there. So just making sure that you have netting and that you have any space at all when you're on the ground without your engine on, checking to see where that throttle cable goes back, and if it goes back in between any little space that could even ever reach the prop. Once you solve that, the probability of that ever happening again is next to nothing.
So we think that the throttle cable went back and pulled your hand back. Is that what we think happened?
That's what I think happened. Of course, it happened so quick, but you know, when I pulled down left really hard and I think I pulled down and out. And so if I would have had the cable and it wasn't over my arm at the time, which I know it wasn't because I didn't know about that yet, it had a lot of excess. And so it would bend and then went back between the netting of the Nirvana Instinct, which, like I said, is really minimal. Anything can go through that netting. And so one of the things that I would say to people that are considering Nirvana is, one, they're probably one of the most reliable engines that are out there. I'd have 0 problems, and I still have 0 problems. Except what I would recommend is don't get the Nirvana straight out of the gates, because like I said, that's like the sports car of the PPG world and Nirvanas. Get something like the Rodeo where it can take a beating and is a little bit more robust. But whatever PPG you have, just make sure that the netting that you have is cinched down and doesn't allow space for that throttle cable or anything else for that matter. Like if you were to, I don't know, let go of your brakes and somehow they start to come back, you know, you want to have netting that's good and protects you.
I've heard a lot of people say the same thing that you're saying, that they have to have their throttle cable at a certain angle. They're not able to do a forward launch because it could go back and warp the cage and all that stuff. I got myself a SkyTap Angel, and I can put my hands back as far as I want to, fling anything, let go of the brakes, whatever I want to do, and nothing gets back there. Even if I fling my hand all the way back, there's just no way my hand can get back inside there. There's 500 test pound Kevlar netting on mine, and you can take that throttle and tighten a knot and it still works. So
Right.
when I hear about, things like this, I just wonder, I mean, it scares me, and I just wonder, why are there frames out there that are like that? Let's go ahead and ask the panel real quick and see what kind of frames they have. Maybe, let's go to Brian Waller. He was our guest last week. He's the one that was shown on Tucker Gott's last video on what not to do when it comes to kicking hay bales and flying low.
Right.
Glad that you're okay, and I think you're going to be out of your cast here in a week. Yeah,
that's right, man. Good deal. I'll be out in a week. I'll have a boot, and then I'll be flying before you know it. But I fly a Parajet, a Maverick Parajet, the motor, the Monster 185, and basically, I was trained during my training that you take the throttle cable and you wrap it around your arm. With my geometry sitting in that frame, it was a little tight for me. So I'm actually in the habit now of not wrapping it around my arm. But I have a pretty good strong net too. So he's got me thinking about it a little bit now.
Interesting.
Well, I mean, and the spacing is going to be the one thing that I think you just have to look out for, because if you look at the rodeo, right on the side, if you're facing forward, on your left and right side, there's a space in between those two segments of the top frame and the bottom frame, and it's lined up straight across, and so it would be easy for a throttle cable to go through there. If you don't do anything, like if you don't put some Velcro around those to stop that from going back. But any of the PPGs out there that have space of any kind where your throttle side cable is, you just really want to pay attention to that, because you're just trying to reduce risk as much as possible. And like, I don't worry about that at all anymore. Like, I've solved that problem with the netting that I have and with the Velcro that I use. I don't even think about it anymore. I know it's not a problem that I'll ever have. And so a lot of the hard experiences I had were that first year I was trained, which kind of goes back to the video I was telling you about where I hit that pinion juniper. You want me to share my screen and show you that one?
Sure, go ahead.
All right, let's see here.
Don't ask me how to share. Have JP that shares everything for us. He's our tech guy. Apparently.
Oh, JP does. Yeah, I can't see where to share it on this, but if you go, so I have a YouTube channel that I've posted videos for my family and friends. And on there, one of my first videos, I think it was actually the second video I ever posted, was called Try Your Best. And so if you go down to videos.
Okay, we're there, we're looking.
Okay, go up to the videos tab. And then towards all the way to the bottom, towards the right, second from the right, is Try Your Best. And this was not a fun time. In fact, I wasn't going to put it up, but my daughters convinced me to do otherwise. And we put some corny music to it.
Yeah, we're not going to put the music on, so walk us through
fine.
it.
Yeah, so this is when I had my instinct. So little did I know, I would be eventually cutting my finger sooner or later with this thing. But so I lined up on this forest road, and the wind was coming straight up it, and the only tree in the area is the one that you can see straight ahead towards the right.
Yeah.
And so I'm getting connected, everything's going fine, and the wind seems to be going fine. And at the time, I wasn't too accustomed to knowing that wings typically pull right, or at least mine does. And I felt like I can make this. I can make it over the tree. So I pulled it up, I look left, I see it, and I'm like, okay, it looks good. So I start running, And I'm like, I can make it.
Oh,
And then so this is a pinyon juniper, so it was no fun.
Oh.
Does it
And
have big thorns in it or what?
oh yeah, oh yeah.
Ah.
And so I had to shut my engine was still going, so I'm shutting it off here, just holding down the kill. And the worst part of this was my lines were so wrapped up into this pinyon juniper. And I wasn't hurt. I had some scratches on my arms. I took my gear off, walked over to my truck, and actually I forgot my camera was recording, and I put it on the back of my truck bed, and I spent the next 45 minutes or so basically filleting that tree, because if you go down there now, that it's like that tree is completely filleted. I broke so many branches just trying to get my stupid lines out of there. And it was a horrible experience. But you learn from it. And luckily, you know, I didn't get hurt. I was just thinking I might be able to make it over this. But of course I wasn't. So, and right here I said, well, that was interesting. And
So what's your takeaway from this one? So when we have, you know, new people that want to get into it, or new people that are just starting, how do they, you know, avoid running into a tree?
so if you can find a launch area, well, but find a launch area, especially when you're starting out, find a launch area that has no obstructions at all in any direction. Like if your wing comes up and it pulls left and you go running off left, you'll be fine, or right, or whatever. Just have no obstructions. And if that can be in a large field, that'd be great. You know, I see some of these videos of guys flying back in Pennsylvania and back east, and out here in the West, we take off from the desert. So we're loving watching people take off from lush grass, because we don't have that unless you get lucky. But if you can find a field, probably one of the best launch areas that I enjoy the most is out on the Navajo Nation, close to where I live. It's this huge lake bed, and it's easily 1,000 feet in every direction, and it's just kind of soft, and you can pull that wing up and run in any direction, and you got no rocks, you got no cactus, you got no trees, you got no nothing. And so when you're first starting out, my recommendation is find a launch space that has no obstructions or rocks or gopher holes or things that you can trip on, for at least, I would say, at least 250 feet all around. That would be your ideal situation. Not always able to find those, but that would be ideal.
I concur with you for sure. JP, can you share his YouTube channel in the chat for us? Let's go over to Shane. Never trust a skinny chef.
Hello.
You are relatively a new pilot. You started flying about the same time I did, back in November of last year.
Correct.
What do you take away from this? How do you make sure that you don't run into, I don't know, trees or other obstructions when you take off? What have you
Well, with the poker run, I don't know if you remember, I was live and almost took off and landed, or actually I almost ran into the back of a camper. I had to abort mission. I had to hit brakes and slide on my knees, and I came up about 10 feet shy of hitting the back of the camper, laid the corner of the camper with a little bit of my my wing, and it was just weird. The wind shifted on me, and I thought for a second I could fix it. And when I looked up to my wing, I was like, okay, it's good. I looked up at the camper. I was like, I'll never make that. So I just aborted. Luckily I did. I would never have made it over that camper.
So it seems like like everyone's talking about, when you first start flying, you don't have your depth perception you don't know exactly where you're going to go. You think that you're going to go this way, but your wing and your body just takes you another way. We also have Tommy Mosley in the group here. He flew out. Are you here? I just see a picture. I don't know if you're live.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Okay, so Tommy and I, we went out and flew yesterday, and our takeoff was between these two big rows of trees. Now, to me, I've flown this a couple times, and you know, I don't have any problem maneuvering around it. He actually told me, he goes, I don't know about this. So tell me, Tommy, what did you see when you saw the obstructions, and what finally happened?
I have a bad experience with object fixation. I've ran into a few things because I'm paying too much attention to it. So I was just trying my best to look at the open area, shoot for that. But yeah, there's a couple launch sites here in Arkansas. We have so many trees. It's really hard to find an open area to land or an open area to take off because you normally always have trees. So object fixation for me is something that I definitely think about. If I'm looking at it, I'm gonna hit it.
We also have Brian Walker, and Brian Walker, he had kind of object fixation also when he ran.
Brian Waller.
Did I say Waller?
It's all good, man. I wasn't going to correct him.
What I say? I meant Brian Waller. What I say? Walker?
Walker. That's all right.
I am so sorry. My boss name is Walker, and it's just crazy how similar. But anyway, Brian Waller, he had object fixation also, and flew himself between two bales of hay, and you're trying to maneuver. So what happened on that way? I mean, why did you hit the bale of hay?
I went too far left. No, I think Tucker's the first one that pointed it out, but yeah, target fixation was what he called it, and he was spot on, man. I mean, it's a thing. I've been driving motorcycles all my life. If you're driving straight down the road and you just look to the right, you'll slowly start wandering to the right without thinking about it. The same kind of goes for paramotors too. That last bit, I was completely focused on that bale of hay. And I suspect that Bradley was also focused on that bush, which was the only thing out in that desert. You must have been looking at it to go straight into it, is what I thought. But what's your feedback on that, Bradley?
Yeah, I've definitely had the same thing, especially, I mean, I used to ride dirt bikes, and I know exactly what you're talking about. But I think when you're flying low like this, you definitely have to watch out for target fixation because it'll just suck you right in. And
yeah,
I was just watching your video actually a couple of days ago, I think when Tucker posted it, and I was just like, oh man, that's gotta hurt like hell.
Sucks for that dude, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And well, you know,
I've seen it quite a few times.
Just looking at it, you know, I'm thinking sometimes you might be cutting things close to an object and you don't know that maybe a wisp of wind might take you over quickly to the left or right, and you might not know that that's coming up. So that's another danger as well. I mean, there was about 2 months ago, I was flying and I had my windsock up on the back of my truck, and it probably stretches up about 20 feet or so. And I was doing a flyby and I had banked really hard left trying to come around it. And I was looking left, and as I was looking left, I saw the tip catch the windsock. And I thought, I am in so much trouble. And I could see it pull the windsock down, and then it was like twang, and it came back, and I was able to keep flying. And I was just like, I am not gonna fly that close to stuff like that again. You know, you just got to be careful. And then of course I go down a canyon and fly really close to canyons. But yeah, I think, you know, anytime you're flying low, especially if you have an object that's coming up, that target fixation is one thing. But another thing that I think we always have to look out for is like sync, you know, and or just pushing you left and right, and you just don't know if that's going to happen. So giving yourself enough leeway for that. But I feel for you.
Yeah, there's just no room for error when you're down that low. I mean, you really need the weather to be right, and your focus to be on, and your equipment not to fail at that particular moment. So yeah, I knew I was taking a risk. Every time we fly low around stuff, you get down in that canyon, you're taking a chance. But
yeah.
isn't it
And that's the thing
fun?
is you got to measure the risk and balance that against the reward. There was one last year around this time I flew up in Page, Arizona, which is around Horseshoe Bend, which is a really big tourist site because that's one of the starting points of the Grand Canyon, and it's just a beautiful site. And the day before, we had got up there and my engine it just seemed like it was just really humid, and so it was reacting to that, and I was having problems I'd never experienced before. And I just chose that day not to fly over the canyon because I didn't want to have an engine out. So you just have to kind of gauge that and then measure against it. But especially if you're flying low, that's some of the most rewarding flying I've ever had, but it's also some of the most risky.
Yeah, I totally agree. We also have our Kevin Can Fly. He is our resident instructor that helps us with instructional needs. So I think that we need to listen to Kevin real quick. When you have students, do you have them, do you tell them about that object fixation and to steer away from something? Or how do you work it when you talk to your students about what we're talking about?
So we discuss object fixation when we start our kiting process. The biggest thing with object fixation is where your eyes look is where your body goes. A lot of students, when they start kiting, they want to look at the ground and run forward, and they don't pick their eyes up. As it's been said, and I grew up riding dirt bikes myself, so wherever your head looks is where your body goes. That's kind of a given statement, whether it's snow skiing, water skiing, whatever. It's kind of always the same. So hold on just a second.
Sure. We also have JP Toole. He's our engineer here. He takes care of all the engineering stuff behind the scenes. We appreciate you, sir. What do you think about the object fixation? What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think it's pretty much what everyone has said. If you stare at something long enough, you tend to go towards it, and don't do that, as Tucker says.
Do you have any advice for anybody? Because how long have you been flying, JP?
A little over a year. Something that I learned actually in driving school was look 12 seconds ahead. Don't look, right in front of you, but look down wherever you're going to be in 12 seconds. Look there, and if you continue looking there and don't fix on a point that you're coming up towards, you won't end up there. So as long as you continue to look ahead, you tend to avoid that phenomenon.
Gotcha. Are you back, Mr. Kevin?
Yeah, sorry, kids.
I understand.
So yeah, so what I was saying is basically what JP was saying. You look as far down the road as you can see or as you can anticipate. And I think that's the key word that we want to use is anticipation. So like Brady was saying about flying around the windsock. When you're getting your wing in close to the ground, trees are close to the biggest part about that is, like I've said before, like we talked about when we talked about Brian's injury, is that danger commitment. It's whether you are committing to that 100%, and instead of having that panic mode, your fight or flight instinct kind of kicks in and you go into fight mode. And so your brain kind of automatically tries to drive you away from the problem, whereas sometimes we go into that panic mode where we don't know what to do, and it might only be a millisecond, but that millisecond is the difference between missing a hay bale by 6 or 8 inches or hitting it and being able to tell a story. So I think a lot of it is like what JP said. It's being able to have that anticipation of where you're going to be and what you're going to be doing when you get there, whether it's an abort, because like in general aviation, before we even take off, we go through an abort procedure. And so if we don't meet the given speed by a given period of the runway, we abort the takeoff. If we lose power on a given portion of the runway, we land and turn off using the remaining portion of the runway. And if you lose power climbing out, you don't try to make the impossible 180, stall the airplane, kill yourself. You aim for something straight ahead, you establish your glide and find the best safe spot possible. So it's a lot of it is just anticipating where you're going to be and what you're going to want to do when you get there. Sometimes what we want to do and what we actually get to do are often different things, but that's my way of thinking is if you can think about it ahead of time, then you should be able to avoid the problem versus reacting to a problem.
So this kind of sounds like a pre-flight thing too, to do into your head. You know, when you start thinking about, you know, taking off, it's like, all right, I see the field in front of me. If I start drifting this way, abort. If I start drifting this way, abort. If I get up to this high and I lose power, it sounds like something that we need to put into our, you know, put into our heads that is part of the pre-flight. What do you think, Kevin? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, it's part of the mental process. So like when we discuss the procedures of flying, we always discuss and we always want to acknowledge the get there-itis that we have. So we want to strap our motor on the back of the car and we want to get to the flying field as quickly as possible. I've seen guys who got in a hurry, they forgot to strap down their motor, and in a given case, one of them was an electric start paramotor, and when the paramotor fell off the rack on the road, the LiPo battery ignited and it burned the entire paramotor down. The guy lost $7,000, a whole air conception motor. And that was get there-itis. He was in such a hurry to get to the field and go fly that he failed to go through all the proper steps to make sure his motor was strapped down, his gas tank was strapped down, everything was 100%. And as much of a joke as it is, I like to use the stupid insurance commercial where they talk about the discount double check. It's always cheaper to check twice and know that everything is good than to sit there and go, oh man, that sucked.
Exactly. That's also like, you know, measure twice, cut once.
Exactly.
I appreciate that, Kevin, that insight. So Brady, is this something that you have kind of inquired or have, it's part of your repertoire now to think about this and to look into the future and do pre-flights?
Yeah, absolutely. I was nodding my head so much because the get there-itis and the I must fly-itis as well is something that you have to watch out for. I think a lot of people when they're first starting out, if they're going to meet friends or, you know, and they're driving, you know, 30, 40 minutes, or I've driven 2 hours to go fly with friends, you feel this obligation to fly, and you shouldn't. You should always, you know, I used to feel obligated to fly, which led me to fly in some really crazy conditions that I shouldn't have. And I landed about as soon as I could after I took off. So just that, what I tell myself when I'm going anywhere to fly, anywhere, I tell myself, you don't have to fly today. You don't have to fly today. And if you want, you can just kite, and you don't even have to kite today. And so taking that pressure off yourself, because, you know, it takes some time, load your truck up and get you gassed up and get your gear together. And so by all the time that's gone by to do all that and all the preparation, you almost feel obligated, like, well, I've done all this work. I'm going to drive all this way and I'm going to have to fly today. And, you know, the first thing I'd tell people starting out is don't ever feel obligated to fly. Take that pressure off yourself and just tell yourself you don't have to fly today. And, you know, we had me and a buddy, Sam Roach, who lives up near the Grand Canyon. We went to go fly the other day near some craters in the area. And the wind actually looked pretty good. And when we first got out there, the windsock was pretty laminar and it looked pretty smooth, but it started to switch up, and he was having problems with his engine, and I was ready to go. So I said, I'm just going to go up and test it. And I did, and I could feel the turbulence, and it wasn't, extremely bad, but it wasn't like the kind of flight like that you like to have, because it's just bumpy and and it's not enjoyable. So I landed and I said, I wouldn't do it. I said, you can give it a go if you want. And he says, no, you've been flying now for 3 years, so I think I'll take your word for it. And so we just sat around and talked for about an hour before we departed and took off. But not obligating yourself to fly. And then the other one I think is really important is aborting your takeoffs. Don't go flying into the Pinion Juniper because you think you're going to make it. You have to know you're going to make it. And if you don't, then just change your launch, or don't launch altogether, just abort it. And so those two things, I think you put upon yourself, like, well, I got the wing up, I'm running, so I need to get off the ground. No, you don't. And that's where a lot of mistakes happen, I think. So just kind of removing that pressure to one, fly, and two, to launch. You can abort. You can always abort.
And I totally agree. Matter of fact, one of the things that I always tell my wife is I tell her that, I'm going down to wherever and I'm going to fly, but if the winds don't look right, or, I just don't want to, or try a couple launches and I fail. My thing is, if I fail three launches, there's something wrong here. There's something wrong. And I'm just going to stop, pack up, and, and enjoy the time with my friends, take video if I'm there with someone else. And also too, when I launch, one of the things I always do is I run with it, but I look at both wingtips before I, punch it, to make sure that I don't have any weird things going on, because I do not want to launch with that up in the air. Kevin Can Fly is our instructor that we can ask different things. One of the things that I guess we need to ask you, Mr. Kevin, is when you tell your students, when they start launching, do you have them look at both wings? Do you tell them that if you don't feel right, you can abort? What do you tell your students when they start off?
We start off when we arrive at the field. The very first thing we want to do is observe. That's lesson number one. That's the very first thing. Get the windsock out before you unpack the wing, before you unpack the motor, before you unpack anything else. Set up your windsock, and then it's really, normally we meet with more than one pilot. Sometimes we fly alone, but a lot of times we fly with other people. So that gives us a great excuse to have another 2 or 3 drinks of coffee, to ask, how's family life or whatever, anything that's mentally away from the task at hand. And honestly, I say that because what we have to do is reset mentally. And that goes back to the get there-itis. So when we're driving in the car, we get anxiety. We get so excited to go fly that when we finally get there, we've got butterflies. We've got this anxiety. We've got this emotion built up. This is going to be so exciting. And then, like you said, what happens is you start overthinking a launch. You start using complacency to do a bad launch. You might use bad body posture because you're trying to be quick and lazy. And so what we want to do is mentally reset the brain. And by resetting the brain, it allows us to come at it from a nice, fresh, new point of view. So by setting up the windsock, taking 10 or 15 minutes and doing nothing more than just BSing the morning, watching the windsock, and then being observant about the direction. So when the windsock decides to change 10 or 15 degrees, not a big deal. It's pretty standard one direction. But if you're sitting there watching your windsock make 90 or 180 degree shifts, how are you going to time your launch? You're going to time a downwind launch. You're going to time a launch into wind. How are you going to figure it out? That's where the 15 minutes comes in. Count the cycles, figure out if the cycles are good cycles or if they're crappy cycles, if they're wind cycles or thermal cycles, because sometimes we wake up late And by the time we get to the flying field, we think, well, it's only 7:30. It's not that late. I should be able to fly for at least a half hour, right? But what we don't realize is by 7:30, it's already become thermic. You only had a half hour window from 6:30 to 7 or whatever. And after 7, it's now starting to build. And so you watch that windsock and you watch those thermal cycles come through. And that period of time can tell you, like Brady said, it's not the day to go fly. I've already got here too late. The conditions are in such a way that I'm going to be putting myself or my gear in jeopardy, and it's not conducive. I like to compare it to surfing. Once you own the wetsuit, once you own the surfboard, and once you've learned how to surf, it's just a matter of waiting for a good day for good swell. We don't have to go get wet every day. We don't have to go get slammed on the beach and break a board to learn that today was a bad day to surf. We have it right there. We have the skill, we have the equipment. When the day is good and the operations are how we want them to be, we commit to the entertainment, we make 100% commitment, and we go fly. If at any point things don't feel fun or don't feel right, we immediately stop and figure out why. And that could be mentally, that could be emotionally, that could be the gear. But if at any point, and it's the I'm safe checklist, did I take medication? Did I get enough sleep? Did I eat? Am I emotionally prepared for this flight? Am I physically prepared for this flight? Is my gear prepared for this flight? Am I safe? And if you can't check off all of the boxes, then you shouldn't go fly. Secondarily to that is the rules of 3. If you get to the field and you don't feel good, that's number 1. If you get to the field and your motor's not running right or doesn't feel right, that's number 2. You should never get to number 3. Pilots get in accidents because they compile the problems. One problem to another problem, and they start adding up, and the problems add up faster than the human brain can solve them, and we find ourselves in a problem we can't solve. So if we get to the first one, we might be able to succumb it. I might just have had a bad breakfast. I can get past that. I might just need to go pee. I can get past that. But if my motor's running like crap and my body's not feeling right, I'm compiling 2 problems that can lead to a bigger one, which may be a decision-making problem. We want to avoid that list of problems. So we reset the brain by taking a couple of minutes, getting over the get there-itis. We're here now. We've made it. We're at the flying field. Big, deep breath. Set up the windsock. Let's observe. Let's see what's going on. Everything looks good. Let's get out the wing. Maybe a quick 2 minutes of hand kiting. Make sure it feels right. The wing looks right. Nothing changed from the last time you enjoyed yourself. Get out the motor, warm it up, make sure the motor works good. All of this is a time process. And if you do the process the same way every single time, then you yourself should be able to identify any place where something's not right. If the wing doesn't come out correct, there was a reason why it went in incorrect. If the motor doesn't run right, you shouldn't try to commit yourself to going and relying on it if something's not right. Aviation has an ultimate outcome. That ultimate outcome is you could not have a friend again tomorrow. We don't want to have that. We want to have our friends as long as possible. Safety is paramount number 1, decision-making number 2. Kind of a long-winded answer, but that's my answer.
That's really good. Matter of fact, anybody that's new, I would definitely recommend that you rewind 5 minutes and listen to that over and over again when you go to the field. I mean, that's absolutely wonderful. That's kevincanfly.com. He owns his own paramotor school up in where?
The school is Bridge City PPG, and we participate just to the south of Portland, Oregon.
All right. And now let's go back to our guest real quick. We appreciate your time. We are not done yet, but let's go ahead and tell people how they can get up with you, find you on YouTube and other social media.
So my YouTube channel, I used to go by Goofyfoot PPG, but then Facebook made me change my name to my real name, and I had to do that. So it's under B Smith, which is pretty common, obviously. So you'd have to search for it a bit. And And now if you were to search for, I believe it's youtube.com/C as in cat /B Smith PPG, you'll get to my channel. And I've got a handful of videos I put up. I usually only put up the ones where I really had a great time and really wanted to capture that moment. Of course, a lot of them are like that, but sometimes, you just want to put the camera down and you just want to fly with your friends. But this one that we're looking at here is a place called Star Wars Canyon, and that's between Sedona and Camp Verde. And, as we were talking about risk versus reward here, coming through here, it's just one, because I was flying with 3 other guys, we all basically know that if there's something going on or if somebody has an engine out, that we're going to come get you, and we're going to do the best we can to do that. Some of us have comms and some of us don't. I think it's one of the most important things to have. It really helps out a lot. I've had one instance where one of my friends had an engine out and landed on the plateau of a mountain in Sedona, which there was only like a 4-wheel high clearance forest road to get up there. And so what I did is I flew over him and called him on the phone, because I hook up through my Cena so I can listen to music, take phone calls, receive phone calls. And I called him and I circled over him for about 40 minutes. And basically we mapped out where he was going to walk to and where the forest road was and what the plan was. And it took us about an hour to get to him. But just having that communication really helped out a lot. So yeah, that's my YouTube channel. I post every now and then, only when it's really special or I've had some plans to go out and do an excellent flight in an excellent place. Like this coming weekend, we're looking at doing Horseshoe Bend again. And that's the one in Page, Arizona. That's really incredibly spectacular country up there. And so I'll probably be
really super
about
special
that.
because it's your birthday flying, right?
Yeah, so last year I sent out a message to some buddies on Facebook, said, "Hey, July 27th, my birthday. I'm going up to Page. I'm going to fly Horseshoe Bend." Because I fly by myself a lot because there's not a lot of people around Flagstaff that fly. There's only like one other that I fly with regularly. But schedules and things like that are hard to match up. So I fly a lot by myself. So I was going to go up to Horseshoe Bend and fly by myself, and had 4 other guys join me. And it was just a really memorable time. And the scenery up there is just incredible. And so I shot out another message a couple weeks ago. And I think there's about 10 to 15 of us going up there this year. So hopefully the wind will work out. Hopefully it won't be too windy because we're in monsoon season here, and there's going to be some storms probably in the evenings, but hopefully Saturday morning will be awesome and we can fly it.
JP, I think your screen is frozen. Are you still there? You're full screening us. There we go. Okay, so do you Instagram, Snapchat, anything else, or is it just?
No, I typically just do YouTube. I mean, I have an Instagram, but I hardly post on it. Anything that I put online is going to be through my YouTube channel. I do sell. I've sold a couple of these stickers that I've created. It says PPG Pilot.
Nice.
And so I sell those through my PayPal account. They're like $5. They're vinyl, pretty cool. And I've sold some of those. I'll have to send you that link later when I can find it. But I do a lot of graphic design, and so decided to make that sticker. What I want to do is make one with a face plant. These PPG face plant sticker. So that'll be coming soon.
I'll put
That'd be
all
cool.
the links down below for sure. That way everybody can take a look. Just want to let everybody see our panel here. Brady Smith is our guest. We appreciate your time here. I am PPG Grandpa. We also have Brian Waller. If you are anybody in the paramotor community, you probably saw Tucker Gott spotlighting Brian Waller and his fun little bump on the hey. We got JP Tullo. He's our he's our guy that helps screen share everything. Linda Anderson, she is our model, and she takes care of all of our good looking.
Yeah.
Right. You're the good
Yes.
looking here because I'm not.
Yes, you guys. I love my circle.
We also have Kevin Can Fly at Kevin Can Fly.
Is it?
Oh, see, I'm not the only one with bad internet tonight. Yeah, it's got to be my Sousa rolling in or something, Brady, because I've been going in and out on Zoom. It's been making me nuts.
Unfortunately, we can hear what Kevin.
I think Kevin likes that.
Kevin, you're breaking up horribly. Horribly.
And we have Never Trust a Skinny Chef Shane, and not only does he fly PPG, but he also cooks. And you have a cooking show. Where's your cooking show?
I'm revamping my show there. Kevin,
I still
Hey,
hear.
you're killing us, Kevin. I thought, well, see, I was killing earlier because I got muted. It's like the start of my life. Linda is muted.
Still lagging. We can hear him in the background. Kevin, I think he's a robot. And we also have Tommy Mosley. He's one of my friends. He's actually been flying down here with me, and we flew to Sonic on one day and ate at 3,500 feet. And we did.
That's
something.
who that is?
Yeah.
Oh, that's the guy from the video. Okay. All right, man. It took me
you can't be making me famous, man. You're gonna have to take me out of your videos.
Hey, this guy's on his way to be famous. He's on the Sonic video with PPG Grandpa Sean. You guys got to watch that video, by the way. He just released it. What, this weekend, Sean?
I think it premieres tomorrow morning, right?
Oh, it's not out yet.
Yeah, you guys were able to watch it.
Oh, well, you guys are the street. Let me tell you.
We got to see the pre-flight video, but the real video comes out tomorrow.
No,
Tucker Gott fame, right?
All right.
No, it wasn't that good, but it was pretty interesting. It's definitely, like Anthony Vella. He went there, and Anthony got burritos the other day, and he went over and got some milk. And another guy over in England, he went to Burger King. Tucker Gott went to McDonald's, and
I cannot go to the place that I want to because it's inside of a no-fly zone for the airport.
What's that?
There's a place I want to fly to, and it would be amazing, but it's just inside, less than 1/10 of a mile inside of a no-fly zone. I cannot get permission to fly into.
Oh no, where is it?
Hooters.
Nice.
There goes your monetization.
Yeah, really.
Wow, this is honest. Hey.
Man, really good video. All right, guys, for everybody on the audio that's been listening to us on paratalk.org, we appreciate your time listening to us. You can always go and jump over to Clear Prop TV and watch it because it'll be on YouTube also. Everyone here, we definitely appreciate your time. Don't go anywhere, guys, because now we're opening up this room for our after party. Woot, 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 woot. So go ahead and who's going to post our, I guess I'll post our stuff here in the chat. What is it? Our room.
Did you guys see Paramotor Crazy's comment? He's thinking about flying to Cinnabons.
Oh, funny.
Oh,
there you go. That's different.
All right.
I'm sorry. It caught me. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
in the chat, you can see our room number. That's our room number for Zoom, and that's our password. So on in, and let's party like it's 1918, right after the plague. All right, time to turn off this. Goodbye to our audio. Bye-bye. And we're going to keep on live streaming. I guess we can live stream on YouTube our after party. Is that cool?
Why not?
Why not? That way we
Why
can
not?
and see what
I'll have to tone it down a notch, but yeah, we can manage.
All right, so
I do.
we're now in the after party. So thank you so much, Brady, for coming on. I appreciate that.
Thank you, Brady.
Well, thanks for having me. I appreciate talking with fellow flyers and just learning from other people and being able to share my own experiences. So thank you.
Brady, don't forget to watch Thursday nights, paraglidingtalk.com.
All right.
Yeah,
I'm Robert PR, so I'm very busy all week.
Linda, your son is so cool, by the way. Check this out.
Thank you. I think he is too.
I don't know if I can show this. He sent me a
What you
random gift. Robert did.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Cool.
just like out of nowhere.
Awesome. You know where he is right now? He's doing an SIV course.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Cool.
Brad,
Brad
right?
knows that. I text him and he's like, I'm in an SIV. Thomas Hart. Oh.
Where is he? Which SIV?
Is with Brad Gaduccio. Gaduccio?
So did he just go and do one with Andrew Fuller also?
I think so.
No, Robert didn't. Not with
Robert
Andrew.
Oh,
He's
okay.
wrong end of the country for that. Robert's in California.
Yeah.
I know there's so many people that are doing these SIV courses. It's hard to keep up with who's doing what and where.
Yeah.
We just have to worry about
Hey, I got
August
another question
8th and 9th.
Yeah, I'm going down with
for
Shane.
Brady.
Yeah, Shane and I are going to go down to Florida the 8th and 9th. So anybody that wants to go with us, we're going to go down to where is it in Florida exactly?
Lake Wales.
Yeah, it's right by Lake Wales. I can't remember.
Oh man, what a drive!
But yeah, so it's right down there by Lake Wales. Shane and I are going to be going the 8th and 9th. It'll be my second SIV, his first SIV. Anybody else that wants to go, it's really fun. I posted all the 360 videos on SIVs. This time, I am not afraid to pull hard where I'm going to flip. I don't care. I don't care if
I thought you were going to have a freaking heart attack, okay? I'm watching you the whole video. And you're pulling that wing out, and you're like screaming. Now you know what it feels like when you're in labor, okay? That's kind of the same thing.
But the thing is, I was freaking
I
out.
thought
I've
I
never
was,
just ran over the dog's foot. Sorry, dog. Where are you laying next to me? But yeah, so when I first went there, I was scared because for the first almost 6 months of my flying, I flew high, and my baby wing overs were just little right and left pulls. I mean, it was nothing, right? So when I go to the SIV clinic, he goes pull, 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 and I'm like way down here, and the wing shoots way over here, and I'm like, whoa, and I feel the G-force is like, oh, this is crazy. This time, I'm gonna try to break the strings, the lines on this. I'm gonna try to do something to
go, Grandpa, go.
Where I get gift wrapped. I have to like throw the reserve up through the gift wrap and just barely make it. I mean, I'm gonna just go crazy on this one. No.
So what gets you to that point? Like, what makes you that confident? Because I've never taken an SIV course, and that would scare the heck out of me.
He's already taken one. That's why he's confident.
I
just took one about a month or two ago, and since then I've been going out, pulling big ears, doing spirals, doing wing overs, and I'm feeling really comfortable. When you first feel the G-forces, I mean, if you're just a low and slow or high and slow, paramotor person that's never done anything other than that, and going in for that nice, slow landing, cut the motor and butterfly land, when you actually start pulling some G's, you can feel it. I mean, your whole face goes from the G-forces. and you start to poop yourself a little bit, and it's like, oh my God, what's going on here? And you're saying foul words that you're not used to saying, that just F, 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 where's that coming from? I don't say stuff like that. Yeah, it was exciting, exhilarating, and scary all at the same time. And it built up my confidence to the point that I know that when I pull all these lines and try purposely to collapse it, and then, I'm doing cramps, and then when I let it go, it goes, and I cannot collapse to keep it collapsed. I'm very, very confident in my wing. Very confident.
Do you always fly with the reserve?
Always.
Are we recording? Yeah. Okay. I do a lot of foot dragging. I mean, one of my favorite things that I do is foot drag. And when I know that I'm going to be in this big field foot dragging, no, I don't take it.
Just an FYI, we are still streaming.
I know. I'm being funny. Huh? But if I know that all I'm going to do is stay in the LZ and I'm foot dragging and having a good time, no, I'm not going to bring I'm not putting my reserve on. If I'm doing XCs and I'm going up high and I'm going to try to do 5,000, 10,000 feet, go to Sonic, and then try to fly to 10,000 feet and eat a cheeseburger, and something happens to your French fries, and I'm not going to say, but it's really interesting on the.
That's what that was. Something happens to his French fries. Let me just say. I caught a little glimpse of it at work without any audio, and I'm like,
and then
watch the video, guys. Watch the video.
We have napkins up there, and it flies behind you. Something happens to your motor and your cage. You're like, what's going on? But I'm not gonna tell you what's going on. But you gotta check it out tomorrow at 8 o'clock.
Somebody got hit in the face with some French fries.
Hey, Sean, are you still reading the chat?
No, I'm not.
Paramotor Crazy wants to know what since your SIV course, what have you been working on the most, and what'd you like to get out of your next SIV course?
Oh, well, number one, Paramotor Crazy, jump on here. I just put the room number and the password on, so jump on and let's chat.
Yeah, better.
I know, right? So what nothing that I actually work on. However, I get a lot. I'm really digging the big ears. Matter of fact, I've been doing foot drags, pulling big ears. I'm just pulling big ears, and I'm doing foot drags.
What?
Yeah, Sean, you need to let me get video of that from the ground, because it is really, really cool to watch somebody come in foot dragging and have their canopies collapse.
How are you controlling
It's pretty awesome.
altitude?
Remember, altitude is
with full power, by the way. He's full power.
What is up with the internet there?
I don't know. Tommy's internet is probably. So anyway, yeah. So I'm pretty much full power. I'm pulling big ears, and I am hauling some. But I probably
all the mail.
I probably have 50 hours of just foot dragging. I get up in the morning, I go foot drag for a couple hours. At night, I foot drag for a couple hours. I put on 20, 25 hours a week on my motor. I got to do 25-hour maintenances every week. I'm foot dragging and doing so much. But
that's a lot of flying.
I mean, I'm really enjoying it a lot. So yeah, so pulling big ears and foot dragging, I love it. I love getting altitude and doing spirals. I don't know why. Spirals are so fun. I just feel the G-forces. I love it. But anyways, next, who wants to talk next?
I got a question for Brady. When you were following your buddy and his reserve came out on accident, was it his reserve deploying that broke his back, or him coming down and hitting the ground that broke his back?
It was
So-
him coming down and hitting the ground.
You come down like at 32 feet a second or something like that with a reserve.
Yeah, I mean, it
5
wasn't.
meters a second, 5 meters per second. It's not soft.
Yeah, it wasn't soft. I mean, like it bent the frame underneath where the gas tank is on the Scout. And when I watched it, I mean, watching it happen, it's kind of weird. It was like in slow motion. You see this chute come out the back, and then what happens is it causes your wing to surge forward. And he was only up about 100 feet, so it's not like he had time to really rake it in. So his wing surges forward, which means he's going to increase his speed now in that direction, and then his reserve didn't allow for getting up above him. It kind of acted like a brake in the back. So it's these two things that are competing against each other, and neither is really offering you to slow down at all. So that hit is what did it.
Yeah, that's what I figured. I just wanted to clear it up because I didn't think the reserve coming out would jerk you back that badly when you were
No.
flying at normal speed.
No, he was, I mean, he told me that he didn't know what was going on until like right before he hit the ground. And he didn't really know until he looked over and saw his reserve, because I mean, as you can imagine, you're flying, and then suddenly your wing goes forward and your reserve's directly behind you. So you're not exactly seeing it right away. So you really don't know what's going on and why it's doing that. And you're falling. And so he was trying to figure things out, but it was scary to watch. And I remember I was getting ready to land right next to him, and that's when he came on the intercom. He says, I'm all right, just go get the trucks. And then I flew off really quick. We were probably only about a mile from our launch. We just launched. So it was scary.
When I did the SIV, he didn't have me collapse my wing. He had me throw while I was flying. So I kind of understand what happens. It catches you, and then all of a sudden you go this way. And if you're only 100 feet above the ground, you probably are like, what the hell just happened? So yeah, I totally understand. And that must be scary as hell.
So when you did that,
what's that?
Did they have you pull in your wing, or did they just have you go down with it?
No, when I pulled the wing, or I pulled the reserve, I went forward, and then I collapsed the wing and I pulled it in. So yeah, now this time I am going to do something that will collapse that wing, that will get me tangled up. My feet will be in the air, and I'll have to pull that reserve. I mean, this time is going to be awesome. It's going to be absolutely awesome. I do have one question, just one question here. How do we have PPG Great Grandpa?
I saw that.
Awesome name.
Hey, who's your daddy?
I have changed my YouTube channel so I could be one better.
He totally one-upped PPG Grandpa to PPG Great Grandpa.
Oh man,
I tell ya.
I was gonna choose never trust a really chef named Shane, but that name is already taken.
Who invited this guy?
Come on.
I don't know.
So
he was in the hot tub last week, I think.
Yeah, at least he's not in the hot tub tonight.
Yeah.
He's wearing
I'm
a
not
shirt.
gonna put
He's wearing a
I'm not
shirt
gonna
today.
put
Gotcha.
on you on the spot here, like one of my former colleagues did to Shane. But if you're doing spirals, and especially after you've done an SIV, why do you not have a reserve?
Are you talking to me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a reserve. I have
Oh, you do?
I have a steerable reserve, but when I'm just doing foot drags, I'm not going to carry a reserve on a foot drag.
So you take your reserve off every time?
It's a front mount. So
Okay.
you strap it in, and it's my flight deck. So pretty much it's just
Gotcha.
a flight deck, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Or
That makes
does
sense.
the bridle Does the bridle hook straight into your carabiners?
It clips into the carabiners, and and then you clip that onto your to the side, which holds it up. Then you clip the actual reserve into the carabiners itself, or you can put them up here on the strap. But I don't know how that would feel with it going, up like that.
That would have to be a permanent mount.
Any reason why I don't have a side mount instead that permanently stays on?
I was thinking about a side mount where it's always on, but I like a flight deck where I can put all of my stuff down there. I can put an iPad, my iPhone, an abacus, whatever I want to right there is pretty awesome.
You should say an abacus.
That's the same.
Is that the fun thing?
You never know when you need to, calculate how high that cloud base is.
French fries, ketchup, mustard.
Yep, exactly. Ketchup and mustard.
Slide rule.
It's also nice if you want to switch between harnesses. I go from free flight to motor wing, so I got a front mount harness or reserve. I can change it out. I can fly somebody else's motor, still have my reserve.
Does anybody fly with 2 reserves? Yes. You do, JP, really?
Of course I do.
Tell us about your reserve, and how do you have 2 of them, and where do you put them?
I have, first off, I fly a Parajet Maverick, which has a side mount reserve that's, zips into the harness, so it's relatively permanent. I mean, you could take it out, but it takes a little work. And then because I wanted to have, like Sean says, a flight deck, someplace to put my phone and whatever, I got a front mount as well. They're both advanced round squares. The big ones, 60s. It's like the biggest size before you go to a tandem. I guess, I don't always fly with both of them. The front one I kind of got out of necessity because after my first reserve throw, it was going to be quicker to get another reserve so that I could fly more than to send out the other one and get it repacked. I was sending the other one to get repacked either way, but there was a big flying coming up, so I wanted to have a reserve for that because I was kind of shooken up from my reserve throw. And now when I'm doing, going up high and playing, doing wing overs or whatever, I take both of them with me just because better to have it not need it than need it not have it.
So I have a question for both of you because I do not have a flight deck reserve. I've got the same one on the side of my, I keep switching back and forth, my Parajet Maverick. I want to have, as I said last week, I'm going to be getting a different unit here in the next couple months as soon as it comes in, and I want to get 2 reserves on my foot launching unit. I've thought about just having one on the right, one on the left, but I haven't thought about having a flight deck, so I want to hear about that. I'm also going to get another one for when I have my tandem strike as well, which will be a much larger one. But what are the negative sides to having the flight deck one? Is it get in the way? Is it pain in the ass to put it on and off when you're clipping in and everything? Is it difficult to do things like foot drags when this thing is in front of you? So what are the negatives to it?
Not really negatives. It's really easy because remember, I fly an Angel because at the Angel, I drag my motor to where I'm going to put it, and it sits on the ground. And then I kite the wing, and then I clip the wing into the motor that's still sitting on the ground. And then I come around, and then I sit down in this nice, comfortable chair that I have. And then I have this flight deck that I clip in right there as I'm sitting down. So I'm not even carrying. It's no big deal. I start the motor up and warm it up while I'm sitting down comfortably, kicking back with a stogie and a beer. It's great, and then.
So you drink alcohol while you're flying?
It's non-alcoholic beer. Come on.
Oh, okay.
Come on now.
And outdoors.
Cheers.
But and then once it's warmed up, then and only then do I lean forward, stand up, and I'm still leaning forward, and I grab the A's if I'm doing a forward launch, throw it back, go forward, punch it, making sure that my wingtips are good, and I'm in the air in 10 seconds. So I'm not carrying a lot of weight for more than 10 seconds. I don't think I would ever want to have a motor where I have to have it on my back, walk it from a stand, go over and bend down and try to clip in. I don't want to do that. That sounds horrible.
So you're saying, so for the last 2 minutes, you're saying there's really no restrictions on having a flight deck?
There's no way.
Restrictions, it doesn't get in the way?
My understanding of a reserve side mount, if you're into a, let's say it's hooked, if you got, like mine's on the left, if you're into a left spiral, I guess it's harder to throw the reserve because it's on the inside. If it was on the outside on the right, then it's easier to throw because of momentum, if you will, is my understanding. I have mine, it's on the side mount. So I mean,
I don't think that matters in regards to reserve or in regards to a spiral. I mean,
Yeah,
it could collapse for a number of reasons.
I understand what you're saying, Shane.
I understand too, but that's, I mean, you may not be in a spiral when you're going to have to throw a reserve.
Right.
To me, I have mine on the right hand because my throttle is on my left.
Right. That's why I have mine on the left, because it's I'm right-handed throttle. That's what was explained to me. I don't necessarily know right or wrong with that. That's what I was explained. If you were to be in, so just do right spirals, you're fine.
Now, I have
One
been told
thing
that
we learned in class.
Go ahead, Brian.
Go ahead.
The one thing I have been told about a front mount reserve, if you're clipping straight into your carabiners on a motor, it's an awfully weird hang point. So if normally you run your bridle up around your harness to up here whenever you're, have a side mount reserve. If you're clipped in here, your bridles aren't but a foot long. So you are going to be kind of hanging back. If you ever do throw your reserve, you're probably going to turtle when you land. That's the one thing I've been told.
Let me go grab mine real quick.
My bridle's like 6 meters long.
Yeah, and most people, they want to clip in up here at their shoulders. But where we are, we're clipping in, at our carabiners. When you're clipping in at your carabiners, it is going to kind of porpoise you a little bit, and you're gonna come down.
And there's different bridles for different reserves too. If you get,
and I've seen some Kyle O videos where he's actually doing a front mount reserve, and he just runs his bridles exposed and clips them in with quick links, here, or he'll Velcro them down. But if you're taking it off and switching it, I figured, I'd rather land and turtle than to not have it at all and be able to switch it between harnesses.
When I fly with my reserve, it's a front on the Nirvana, and I actually like it the same way that he's talking about with having that cockpit kind of where you can lay things down on the Velcro, just like that. Yeah.
It was a corn dog holder for me on Saturday. So, yeah.
Here's mine right here, and this was my my Sonic tray, which is really cool. But this right here will clip in. Both sides will clip in to the same carabiner that my wing is clipped into, which means that when this thing inflates and it's steerable, there's really no difference. I mean, this thing's a 42, I think it is, which I don't know what that means, but it's a pretty big one, which means that it's big enough, it's steerable, it's at the same carabiner. So if something happens, I don't even know what would happen to my wing, which would cause me to actually throw this reserve. But if
How do you deploy it?
You deploy it right here.
Let's see.
So you can
Pull
throw
it.
Give it a
you
go.
can use your right or your left hand. That's one of the pluses to having a front mount versus a side mount. If for whatever reason one of your hands becomes incapacitated and you can't reach to the side that a side mount is, having it mounted in the middle is a plus in that fashion.
JP, which is your first hand that you're gonna pull? You're gonna pull the side one, or you're gonna pull the chest mount?
I would probably pull the side one, but that's mostly because it's already been pulled once, and I don't want to mess up my new one. You know what I mean? Um,
I don't want to mess up my reserve. I don't
He's
want
gonna pull the one. He's gonna pull the one that's the least
Save it
current.
for
Needs
you
to
really
be
need to.
repacked anyways.
yes, the one that needs to have the repack is the one I'm going to pull.
All right, so it doesn't matter, is what you're saying.
Well, okay, I would say this
For
too.
safety.
As far as safety is concerned, probably the side mount. Well, they both have their ups and downs.
Are they mount or are they steerable?
Mine are just whatever, just random, regular, non-steerables, because that's what, I don't know. That's what I went with at the time.
We live in a place with too many trees for non-steerables. We'll end up in a tree for sure.
Yeah. Well, the thing about drawbacks you were asking David about the front mount is, at least with the mobile like front mount that you can take from motor to motor, is it's mounting in the same hang points that your glider is mounting to. So if for some reason,
I like that.
What's that?
I like that.
Well, yeah, but if you were to have like a carabiner failure, then you don't have there's no redundancy there, which is the nice thing about a side mount. It's going to mount to the soft links on your harness, so that if your carabiner failed or your swing arm failed or something like that, you're not relying on it still for your reserve, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
So, but with that being said, I really like my front mount, because like when I went to Palm Bay and I had some issues with my motor, you can't take your side mount to another motor, but I can take this right here and I can go fly. Matt Minyard let me fly one of his units, and I took my front mount with me, and I was covered. I was covered to fly any unit there, because it takes 2 seconds to just snap right in right here and to have, instant safety.
Let me see yours real quick. And
Same one? Almost.
Yeah, the same thing, don't we?
And how do you know which side is the left and right with the blue and red and the red and green? I mean, think about it. If it's like mine is steerable, there should be a difference, right? Because you want the front to be front.
Yeah.
Yours is round, right?
Correct.
So how do you know which
Wouldn't
one?
really matter much.
I would read your manual.
Well,
that's one of the reasons.
My instructor packed it, and
I would pull up the manual. What is that, Beamer 3? Pull up the manual online and look it up. That's one of the other reasons why I went with a non-steerable, just because, for simplicity. That's another thing to go wrong. Wherever your things are, you got to grab them and stuff. And it's
what's the difference? You just fly it backwards then.
If you're going,
there you
just
go.
fly it backwards, you'll be fine. Or
that would be interesting. I mean, it would be another adventure. But
cool.
you're
Make a great video.
You know why JP knows which way to hook that, because Napa knows how.
Knows
how.
I stole that from Tony on the chat, just so you know.
I know what it is. It's green is always to the right, right?
Right, red
to the left when you're, like airplanes and your lights. So maybe that's it. Maybe that's how we know.
I matched it to the colors on my glider, and red was on the left on my glider, and blue was on the right.
And you read your manual.
My manual. This was not covered in the manual. This is driving me nuts, by the way. The colors on these things, because they're not consistent between brands. Like Jin will have them colored one way, and then Ozone will have them another way, and then Dudek will have something else.
So
it's always red and something.
So we've said that not everybody flies all the time with their reserves. What about flotation?
Nope.
Oh, let me show you what I got.
I haven't put my flotation on yet.
I will get flotation once I get my new rig.
What's flotation?
We don't need it in Ohio.
Life jacket.
Oh, I could use it this weekend.
I'll be wearing it this weekend.
JP, you coming up this weekend?
This
weekend.
Michigan?
Michigan. Is there flying that I don't know about?
Apparently there is.
Everybody got the invite but me.
They said
the Walter RC. I'll send you an invite right now.
Yeah,
JP, they said they sent it all out to the people they liked. You didn't get one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Hey guys, I'm gonna have to run home.
All right.
You're still at work.
Don't run too
I'm
fast.
still at work. Thank you so much for having me on. And,
Dude, it was so great having you.
if
Yeah.
you guys are ever out in Arizona, look me up
Yeah.
and send me a message, and I'll take you flying around Sedona and some really cool craters. And yeah, just
Right.
anytime.
That extends to the viewers too. You guys heard it. He's offering his couch
All right,
up
man.
for anyone that sees the video. Give him a call. You can sleep on Brady's couch.
Hey.
Oh, nice.
Oh,
You can come stay at my house. It's all good.
there you go.
You guys, whoever.
Linda, you
Love you
didn't hear
guys.
him say he had a wedding
I think
ring?
we're all subbed up to your channel, man. So we're keeping an eye.
All right, be looking for the next video. It probably will be the next one over Page, Arizona with Horseshoe Bend. I think we're going to be flying up to a place called Marble Canyon and going under Navajo Bridge. So I'm hoping to get some really good video, and hopefully the weather will work with us on this Saturday.
Awesome. I'm gonna post a link to your page again in the chat. So
Thanks
JP,
again,
Six
guys.
just put in JP. I just put in the Zoom chat the link to that fly-in this weekend.
thank you, sir.
It's called the Walter RC Fly My
Take care.
PPG fly-in.
All right. See you later, man. Thank
See
you.
ya.
Bye.
Yeah.
Well, since you asked, this is my flotation. I saw Leah Catulo. She put on one on like this when she went into the SIV course. I'm like, that's really cool. It's really light and it has the little canister thing.
Oh, we're keeping you awake. Are we
Sorry.
keeping you awake, Paramotor Crazy?
Yeah, I got a bug out in a second. I had a long day today. Actually, I do have a question for everybody, don't I, Shane?
There you go.
I ain't said nothing. Go ahead.
If I want you to define for me an emergency landing.
Emergency landing is when you're not expecting to land and your wing or your motor makes you land. And depending on what you do.
I know exactly what that's like.
Yeah. Tommy just did an emergency landing. Go ahead and tell what happened and why it was an emergency landing.
So I've been wanting to fly this area for quite a while. I don't know if any of you guys fly with a speed bar. I've got a mountain wing, so I don't have tremors. Wind was supposed to be pretty light. I said, you know what? I'm not going to hook up speed bar. First mistake. Go out. I start getting pushed back over a river, which is the Arkansas River. Is pretty wide. I'd have to turn around and book it awfully far for somebody to come get me. So the entire time we go out of this park and there's a ridge to the left of us. We have a wind coming over the ridge and a little bit of rotor coming over it because of it. We get up high enough. Well, yeah, it turned into a lot of rotor. We get up high enough to where we're out of the rotor and we take off, I don't know, 4 or 5 miles past the ridge. The whole time he's playing around doing what he wants. I have no tremors and I'm trying to speed bar into the wind, or if I have no speed bar, I'm just trying to go into the wind. I finally get back to that ridge and I can't penetrate whatsoever. So I thought maybe if I drop below the ridge, the wind will be less and I'll be all right. Drop below the ridge and it is wonky air. I am basically on the lee side of a mountain and big mistake is I'm trying to, at this point, turn around, get out over the river, get higher and try to penetrate to get back. I take a good 50% collapse about 600 feet over the ground. It pops back open right at, about treetop level. I landed just fine. Somehow I turned the motor off in the process. That's an emergency landing.
Okay, good. So, and I'm going to give you 2 examples. I'm not going to say anybody's names, and if you know who the pilots were, don't say any. But I will say this, that I did look up the definition of an emergency landing today, and it basically says, to make a long story short, is that you have to, it's imminent danger to either a pilot, a passenger, or the aircraft, causing an emergency landing, to land quickly and get on the ground. Okay, so here's the first example. Is this or is this not an emergency landing? Pilot's flying about 1,600 feet AGL, motor out. Pilot glides back over a mile back to the LZ.
Yes.
Unsure he's going to make it. and there's plenty of LZs below him to land. Is that an emergency landing?
Yes.
What does
I
everybody
consider
else
that
say?
a dead. I consider that a dead stick landing. Or dead stick landings in planes, are they emergency landings? I mean,
No.
I don't think so either.
Emergency.
Like here's
There's like no there's no emergency. There's no danger.
The emergency is you're coming down whether you have a place to land or not. Like your
but
motor's
you got a
out.
parachute.
Your motor's
Your motor's out, but you're gliding down.
So I just
So
had
every
You're not
skydiver,
gonna
every
kill
skydive is
yourself.
an emergency.
There's no
landing.
imminent. Right.
Yeah, you get-
Exactly. There's no imminent danger. There's plenty of LZs. We're taught to look for an LZ in case we have a motor out. That is not an emergency landing. There's no imminent danger.
okay. Well,
Okay.
Unless
There's another.
unless you land in a tree, then it's an emergency.
well, then you're not
That's a
actually
crash.
landing.
I would say it's an emergency because you have a fixed amount of time.
When you have a fixed amount of time with you have a gas tank full of gas, it's going to run out eventually.
Right.
And that
Right.
Well,
But
Oh, no.
Tommy makes a great point. Tommy
Tom-
makes a
Tom-
great point. In that
Yes, he
case,
does.
every skydive is an emergency landing. That
Mhm.
doesn't matter. We're
So-
taught we're taught to be prepared for that procedure if we have a motor out. Here's another example. Pilot
is
is
just
flying
semantics.
along. What's that?
it's just semantics. How much do you want to read into the word? You know, everybody has
Okay.
their different.
So here's another
definition.
one.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Here's another one. Comes back around to make an approach. DLZ, the power lines, and pilot accidentally hits the kill switch to avoid power line and lands into the corn below him.
Are you talking about
Is that
Sean?
an
Dorr?
emergency landing?
You're talking about Sean.
We're
Dorr.
not going to talk about who it was.
He
We're
has
not
a-
going to
he has
say
the most
who it
popular,
was.
what's that?
Does he?
Oh yeah.
Would you consider this a emergency landing?
Yes, because if
Was he in imminent danger? He had an LZ below him.
well, the imminent danger was, the power lines right in front of him, and
But he had that was the danger. But
danger.
he turned to the right. He wasn't in danger. He was into a cornfield.
Which a cornfield, you can get yourself hurt in a cornfield. So I mean, it wasn't like it's like, oh, there's power lines. I'm going to turn and gently land. Turned, landed, dumped. Got hurt. Well, not really hurt, but hurt. I think that was
Okay.
I think that was emergency landing because he got hurt and he had this much time to get down there.
Okay, here's
So-
so this
so
past
I-
this. Go ahead.
Well, I think I'm gonna do what you're about to do, but I was gonna say Kevin Can Fly was on the chat and he's our expert. So I was gonna say what his feedback was is anytime you don't have a choice about coming back to the ground and it's an emergency landing, whether it's a motor out or a mechanical failure, if you're forced to land, it's an emergency landing, is his feedback.
Well, this past weekend I ran out of fuel, but I knew I was getting low on fuel, so I climbed to 2,000 feet. I ran out of fuel at 2,000 feet. I had 12 minutes, I think it was, before I had to worry about landing. Is that considered a emergency landing?
I mean, that's a non-event. I think it's emergency if the situation's dire. If you have a motor out and there's a storm behind you, you're trying to get away from, or something that's going to make it an emergency. But that's pretty much a non-event.
I think that if you have like 2 seconds to avoid power lines, and you end up dumping in a field of corn, which is not grass, and you end up landing on your knees / wrists, just barely missing power lines, I think that's emergency landing. Now, if he was back far enough and his kill switch happened, well, then he had a couple of things, try to restart it, or try to come in for a better landing and try to get on a try to do more of a butterfly tiptoe type of thing.
Okay.
What do
I
you
can agree with that.
This is why, guys, that it goes back to any landing that you did not intend to land. Like that's why I've heard it discussed before. It's a landing that you don't intend, that you're not planning on, is like the definition of an emergency.
I guess we
So
can't
you think
skydiving, because skydiving is I'm going to fall until I let the chute off, and then I'm going to land
okay?
whatever. We're talking about powered paragliding, which is different than paragliding. So I guess if you run out of gas, that could be emergency. But
So
If
Jake, do you think every motor out is an emergency landing?
I mean, if you're gonna call that word,
Let's use it
I mean, that's a
minor
scary word to
emergency.
yeah,
use.
yeah.
when we say emergency, are we talking about like it's an emergency and I have to pull a reserve, or emergency I'm going to come down and float down and I landed in some
I
grass?
would say that you're coming down whether you like it or not is the definition, because you don't have any lift anymore. Like if you're on a paraglider, you would still have the wind and thermals or whatever, but as paramotors, we don't have that. So if your engine's out, you've lost your source of lift, and at that point,
I guess also, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I guess it also means too, it's like, are you going to jump on YouTube and say that I had emergency landing when you know, like Shane said, you know, I ran out of gas and then I floated for 12 minutes and I landed at the LZ, you know?
I mean, for some people that would be an emergency. You know, it depends on the person. If they've
Well, I think
never had a motor in their life,
I think we're looking at the definition though. The definition is completely different. I mean,
The definition's different for somebody that's a student to somebody that's been doing it for years. It's not an emergency for somebody that's got hundreds and hundreds of hours, you know, but I guess you could consider it an emergency, because if I was a student on my first flight and I had a motor out, I mean, no matter where I am
Big
or
deal.
how high I am, that's an emergency.
well, during class, I ran out of fuel. I actually, teacher came on and said, "Hey, I think you may be out of fuel here soon, so don't go too far." And about 30 seconds after that, my motor died.
How many times you run out of fuel now?
That's my second time, but
Just twice. Okay.
yeah.
All
Well,
right.
I gotta say, I respect all of your answers. I respect your backing of them. So I'm good with every answer.
What do you think? What do
and
you
we're
think
wrong.
emergency is? What do you think emergency is, since you asked?
Well, the first example that I gave was my own flight when I had a motor out at 1,600 feet, and I put on my YouTube. I put on it called "Emergency Out at 1,600 Feet," and I got help for that, saying this was an emergency. This was a motor out, and you got back safely. There was no emergency. So I was like, well, man, I got bashed for that. But I mean, I respect JP's definition, and I can get that. And I guess it depends on the person what they felt. So, but I appreciate the way that you're all presenting your opinions in this case.
I like that we talked about this, because I never thought about that definition until we just talked about it just now. And you are absolutely correct. It depends on the person. When you were up in the air and you were at 1,600 feet and you it had a motor out, that was an emergency. I mean, you're brand new. I got emergency. I know that I think I can make it, but I'm coming down. So yeah, that could be an emergency to someone brand new. Someone's been flying and doing skydiving and does trick stuff. He has a motor out. It's like, oh, I'm just going to come over here and land on a treetop, because there's more skill involved. I think that
Go ahead. I'm sorry, Sean.
I think an emergency landing for me and maybe the PPG community, an emergency landing is when you
Linda, what are you doing?
When you land unexpectedly and you get hurt.
Okay. Since I've been back from my SIV, I've had 4 motor routes, and that's because I've gone into nose down spirals and I've G'd out my motor.
Wow.
But as I was,
Cool.
but I would start up the motor as I was flying each time. Like I didn't realize I still needed to give it a little bit of power. The first 2 times I did that, and the second 2 times I just forgot because I was spinning so fast. I forgot to give myself a little power just to keep it flowing.
So Dave, Kevin Can Fly just said, and more or less in his comment right there was some people consider, or some are small like motor outs, some are big like reverse tosses. It's a variety, or it's a scale. You know, I guess it does depend on the pilot. I didn't think my running out of gas at 2,000 feet was an emergency landing. I thought it was, well, I knew waiting 45 minutes flying in a circle for everybody to take off was foolish of me to continue on when they all said, hey, we're going cross country. And I had an hour and 30 minutes worth of fuel in my tank when I started.
I think location has a big part of it too. I mean, if you're in a desert, or God forbid you're flying over the ocean and you've got flotation, well, there's still sharks. So yeah, location's a big deal.
Yeah.
I think it also turns into an emergency whenever you overshoot your landing and there's only one little spot to land. You know, it turns into an emergency whenever you overshoot your landing and there's miles of trees in front of you and you're 100 foot above the ground and you can't, you know, you're gonna hook a U-turn into the ground or you're gonna land in a tree.
Oh, JP
We're
pulled
we're pulling up definitions.
Hey, Tommy, your audio is way better, by the way, man. I don't know what's different.
I switched my headphones. That's what it was. My headphones were messing up.
So if you want to get real technical with it, there's different types of emergencies landings. There's a forced landing, which is, I think, what we're talking about with running out of gas due to technical problems. There's a precautionary landing where you're just, you know, I want to be safe, but there's ditching where you're coming down no matter what, and you put the aircraft in the water. There's different types of emergency landing. So it's like what I said about semantics. It's
wait, go down a little bit. There's something about, scroll down a tiny bit there, JP, because I saw, okay, hold on, keep going right there, stop. What does it say? Glider pilots? That's nothing important. Okay. I don't know. All right. So it's an interpretation. Let's go with that.
It's an interpretation is exactly correct.
So kind of like, how do you interpret, you know, a congested area under FAR 103? You know, is that two people standing in one spot? You know, it's
no such thing.
Somewhat subjective. You know,
there's no such thing as a congested area.
I'll say the FAA won't look at it like that.
Hey, Dave, let me ask you something. Do you remember the topic of when does a new pilot have the right to show concern or say concern to another pilot?
Yeah.
I think that goes back to our conversation earlier today. You know, like if you're a new pilot and you see somebody doing something not supposed to or is dangerous, you know, that person's probably gonna jump down your throat just because, well, you're the messenger. You know what I mean? I think that's.
I've never been in a group of people where somebody said, I'm not going to fly because I don't like the way the wind is, and anybody jumps anybody's throat.
No, I think the other day, Sean, you were sitting there, we were talking about that storm passing, and I said, hey, should we warn those guys? He said, I'm not mommying anybody. They're competent pilots. If they decide not to fly, they won't fly.
They were 100 miles away.
Yeah,
and
that's
looking at radar, we didn't know what their micro was. That's
why
I'm
going to speak for Shane and myself. While everybody else is talking about is the wind okay, Shane and I are usually the ones that are launching at that moment.
Yeah.
Ain't that right, Shane?
We'll let y'all know. Just sit down there.
Yeah. Window.
We're both first off the ground.
Yep. Every time. That's what happened to me this last weekend. Flying with 4 other pilots, 1, 2, 3 other pilots, and they all were sitting there talking. I laid my wing out and took off. And they got on the radio and said, hey, we'll be up in a second. Well, 30 minutes later, the next guy took off. Another 10 minutes after him, the next guy went off. And then another 40 minutes later, the last guy, after 3 failed launches, finally got off the ground. And then they're all like, hey, let's go do a cross country to 192 from the compound. I'm like, all right. Well, I knew I wasn't going to make it all the way there. So I had planned a point of return. And when I looked at my fuel tank at the point of return, I had a point of no gas already. So I was like, oh, crap.
Do any of you guys run speed bar on your wings?
I do. Once in a while.
You do? Does it help you punch through turbulence, or is it more collapse resistant while pushing bar? Or
if I'm in turbulence, I'm not pushing speed bar.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not touching the speed bar if I'm in turbulence. Hey, you know, earlier tonight you guys were talking before I got on about target fixation, and if you steer at something, you're gonna hit it.
Yes.
I'm gonna go steer at my wife. I'll see you guys later.
Yeah,
I'm
my
gonna get off
man.
here too,
Oh
guys.
my God.
Mic drop. Mic drop.
See you guys Wednesday night. See you guys Wednesday
Oh,
night. See ya. Peace out, girls.
oh, dang.
I don't think
Yep, I'm out too, guys. Thank you guys for having me on.
All right,
Hey,
later,
thanks, man.
later,
See
guys.
y'all.
Peace out,
I
man.
don't think I can follow that either. I think I better out of here. It's almost 9 o'clock, so that's our after show. It's been really awesome. I appreciate everyone on here, and we brought up a lot of really interesting topics that we probably need to talk about throughout the week, like emergency landings, target fixation, and things like that. And really mull over these because this is really interesting stuff, and maybe we can come up with something that's a little bit more cement and more concrete when we get to next week's thing, so we can kind of lay out what is an emergency landing, what is target fixation, and what is this that everybody's talking about. So we definitely have some really interesting stuff. Brian, thank you so much for coming on. Appreciate you. Shane, man, you always have the interesting that's what she says. And Linda, she's so tolerant of all of us guys. We appreciate you. JP, thank you for being able to screen share everything. You guys can stay on all night long if you want to, but I think Grandpa here needs to go nighty-night, and I appreciate y'all.
No problem, man.
Show, guys.
It is
job.
10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock here myself. So
Hey, real quick, just before you shut it down, I don't know if you saw my messages, Sean. For a little while during the stream, I don't know if it was a setting or what, but it got stuck on Kevin when everyone else was talking.
Yeah.
So the stream share was just showing Kevin like shift back and forth for like 10 minutes instead of so I don't know if just something to be aware of. I keep a separate screen up so I can see what the viewers are seeing on top of I can see our Zoom screen, but that was something I noticed. So
you guys are all managers. I think y'all managers and admins. You guys should be able to do everything I can do.
Well, same here. I noticed it as well. I watched a separate phone just so I could see the chat. I could stream to YouTube. And yeah, I noticed the same thing with Kevin. It looked like for a while, maybe he noticed it and he was trying to correct it, looking at settings, but yeah, like I said, it just stayed on for like 10 minutes.
If you see something like that, just say, hey, real quick, we got a weird setting going. We'll fix it. It's no big deal.
See something, say something.
Yeah.
You guys just like mute me when there's well.
We'll just kick you off
for the next week.
I know. I'm like I'm muted again. I don't even know what I did. No, I get it. My internet's been all crazy. We got some crazy storms coming in tonight. Monsoon starting to hit, so I think that's why my internet kept going in and out. So I hope, like Sean, you're gonna edit a lot of this because my screen kept freezing, and I don't know if everybody else could see that stuff.
I probably won't edit anything. This is live stream, and once we're done it,
yeah.
Okay.
Hey,
I'm sorry, guys. Yeah, twice I had to go out of the screen. I'm like, great, I'm supposed to be in the show, and yeah, and it was going back and forth. And
if he didn't edit me going to the bathroom in my episode, he's not going to edit anything out.
Yeah, true. No, we had.
I mute my mic now.
No, this
that's
is good.
probably best.
I'll watch it tomorrow. I'll let you know. Yeah.
All right, guys, I'm out of here.
Okay.
I got bedtime.
I'm out of here
See
too.
you, I guess Wednesday and Thursday.
Yes.
Friday. Yeah. I don't know about tomorrow night because I never know when Aviator's on. So.
All right, guys. Have a great night.
Yep.
Night, guys.
Night,
Peace out, guys.
All right.
Fly safe.
And stop live.